we ready? Beautiful. Well, thank you all for joining us here. I'm excited to be here for the next Teach for All talks. And as I've been explaining to Kennedy here, this is being filmed and shown in other Teach for All hubs and in partner offices around the world. And we're going to tape it and use it for posterity. No pressure. And for those of you who are new to this series, the goal is really to engage our community with thought leaders in the realms of education and social innovation and other fields so that we can not exist wholly within our own bubble. So let's just dive in. We have one more of these scheduled and are working on many others. The next one's in April with Aditya Natraj, who's doing incredible work developing thousands of school principals across India and has done a lot with Teach for India. But I'm really incredibly excited to be able to share Kennedy's story and learn more about his thoughts here today. I feel so lucky to have somehow randomly come into contact with Kennedy a couple years ago, and honestly have come to think he's one of the most remarkable people in the world. He has an absolutely remarkable story, is doing incredible work in Kibera, which is, I believe, the largest urban slum in Africa. And he's also proven to be just an incredible champion of our model, which hopefully will soon happen in Kenya. So I'm excited to just help hopefully create a platform for him to be able to share a little more about all this with you all and with the broader Teach for All community. So before we get started, I want to encourage everyone here in person to ask questions. And if you're remote, we're going to use Twitter for questions. I'm at Wendy Kopp. Kennedy's at Kennedy Odede. And we're using the TFAL Talks hashtag. And you can also just email Noran Khan at teachforall.org. So to finally get started here. So Kennedy, maybe tell us where you grew up and a little bit about your own experience in trying to get an education.
Oh, thank you so much, Wendy. I'm very happy to be here today. And I'm a very big champion of Teach for All. So education has been something very important to me because I grew up in this slum in Nairobi, Kenya. I used to see other kids going to school in bright uniforms, and I came from a really, really poor family. So that was something that was sad. And at the age of 10, I ran away from the house. I became a homeless kid because I couldn't access education and there was no food in the house. So for me, education is a privilege that I felt I was denied at a very early age, And also that kind of, I really wanted education. So on the streets, I was collecting the old newspapers, anything written, I wanted to read, and as a way to educate myself. So, and if you talk about education.
How did you learn to read?
I was playing with things, I just take papers, I was reading it, and it was hard in terms of past tense, the tenses,
But you hadn't gone to school,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
So someone taught you your letters and somehow.
I kind of, it's so weird, I kind of just play around with it, And then later on in life, I was able to meet a Catholic priest, and because I used to disturb him all the time, and he bought me a dictionary, which was really tough. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So not to interrupt. So you kind of taught yourself to read. And
yes.
Did you ever go to formal school?
Yeah. So I spent from the street. I stayed on the street for 2 years. Then I went to informal school. That took me for 2 years again. Hard life again. I have to leave the school and I have to going to sell peanuts. Was a really hard life. But what I learned through this struggle was seeing what other people are going through. So I was not happy, and I realized that we have to do something. And I think that's the moment I was able to start, we were able to start what's called SHOFCO, Shining of a Community, which became like a movement, and
Can you tell us this story, though, in granular detail? Like, so you were 18, and you went out, you had 20 cents.
By then I was working in a factory.
Yeah.
I was earning $1 for 10 hours, And there's a lot of events that happened in my life. One, I lost my friend who was killed by the police. Another one was Calvin's, who hanged himself because of her life. And Before then, I was inspired by Martin Luther King Jr. So what I was looking for was hope. There's no hope. You look around you, nobody have made it. So you kind of give up. But I was like reading this book, I'm like, wow, this man never gave up. I want to be like him. You know? So that became something that really drove me. And then when you were little, my mother, she's alive, she's a very, very strong woman, never went to school, but loves education. We used to have food a little bit. You know, food is something precious in our time by then. And it used to be the neighbor's kid were coming, and I'll be so mad. And I say, Mom, let's close the door. These kids want to eat our food. Like, Kennedy, that's not good. You don't have to be rich or poor to have an impact. So that's something that really clicked with me. You know what I mean? So that's something really like anybody can have an impact. So reading the story of Martin Luther King Jr. with the story of my mom, I was on fire. You know? So that's when I bought the first soccer ball, and I called the community to come together. I remember we were having like 6 people, you know, and they all challenged me, Kennedy, where is the donor? And I say, we are the donor. You know, we don't need anybody. We have to come together, clean the street. And it's really started like a movement with just hope. I never knew I'll be where I am today. But back in my mind, I knew very well the future is education. But I didn't have anything. But what I wanted to start first was how to gather the community, you know, to make them on fire, to make them believe, you know. So my idea was to open a school for girls, a women's school. Why? When people are poor, most of the time women tend to be really getting hard time. My mom, I think my mom could have been somebody big. I'm not kidding you, very smart. But the only thing is that she was a woman, and that she never went to school because she was a woman. Can you believe that? So that really her dreams had been shut. So I believed in education, and I also believe that in this community, let's start with those who have been really marginalized, and it was women. So that's where the school of Kibera School for Girls started. But how do you make it innovative? Men were not happy. You know, it's a patriotic society. We were like, hey, what are you doing with women, Kennedy? This is not fair. The idea came up, like, we're going to have a school that is linked to social services. So whereby men can feel part of it. How? We have clean water. We have health clinic. We have library. The men love to read newspapers. So they come, so become like a center. So if you do away with the school, you are doing away with what? With the social services. And that's how it became an innovative way of involving men. And that's how we have a school now. We have up to 6th grade. Yeah. Yeah.
And how did it go? Because the first thing you did was buy a soccer ball.
Yes.
Why was that?
Okay, a soccer ball.
I've always wondered this.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. I think for me, we love soccer. Really, we are crazy about soccer. And for me, soccer, the ball was a way of bringing people together. So that was a way of bringing people together. So people came together for the soccer. During that time, we could talk about issues that are affecting us in the community. So soccer brought us together.
And when did that turn into this kind of larger idea, or how did that evolution happen? Did that take years or weeks or months?
Oh, good question. Yeah, it was hard, to be honest. It was a very, very hard time. There's a time I felt I want to quit. There's a time I felt there was nothing moving. But I think what happened was that belief that we can change our own life. That was the thing that happened. We can change our own life. And we are seeing the bigger picture. And we wanted to be an example of how grassroots leaders can come together and change their own life. So it took me, I would say, like 5 years before, before getting my scholarship and come to the States.
We have to tell this story. So Kennedy literally, after you hear this story, he met someone who had the bright idea that he should go to a U.S. university, and was that university's commencement speaker at his own graduation in 2012, Wesleyan University. So you have to tell us that story.
Okay, good. Okay, this is a very good story. But I really never knew I will get there. So we became popular in the ghetto. We were like this amazing group of people doing cleanups, talking about women issues, street theater.
This is like a major thing. Like I got this from all my reading and from past conversations, but like Kennedy, they call you Mr. Mayor.
Yeah,
right?
that's the name I
Kibera.
got. Yeah, the name Mayor.
At this
but I'm not elected.
young age.
Okay? No election. Anyway, so we became, so I remember there was a time we were giving a speech at the UN, you know, because we're becoming more famous now. And there was somebody who knew Jessica. So Jessica was a young lady who goes to Wesleyan. So coming to do what? Study abroad. So Jessica got in touch with me. And I think she was a little bit crazy by then. She was like, wanted to come and live in Kibera and work with SHOFCO. They say, no, that's the wrong idea. First of all, you should not write anybody an email that you want to come stay with them, you know? And then, you don't know. So Jessica
This
came.
is now his wife, by the way, Jessica. Little fast forward.
You're going too
Just
far,
to keep
Wendy.
everyone listening. Okay, go on.
Okay, so what happened was that, so Jessica came to Kibera and we were working together and she was asking me about my life, my future. So I told her that I really believe in education. But one day I'll go to what's called the community college. I'll save, you know, I'll go for that. And like, have you ever thought about applying for American universities? And I'm like, no, I told her I can't get there. That's too much dream. Anyway, so for me it was like a joke, I will be honest. And I wanted just to make, because kind of we were falling in love. So I was applying just to make her happy. I knew no way I'll get there. And believe it or not, I was able to get a scholarship. And I went to Wesleyan University. And for me, it was a big change. And that's when we were able to build a school for girls in Kibera. You know what I mean? So that for me to see this kind of opportunity, you know. I remember things I enjoyed then was, you wouldn't believe this, things like shower. I was taking 2 hours showering. I was so happy. Food was like, wow, the first time in my life to have enough food, you know. And I felt a little bit opportunities. What about people back home? You know, that's when during the summer, I went back and we were able to build these schools with $10,000 that we collected from the school. And now we have that Kibera School for Girls, you know, and it's been having a lot of impact in the community.
And what would you say, like when you think about your experience, so you've been at SHOFCO for how many years now, like a decade?
Yeah.
And what would you say are your biggest kind of learnings from all of this? I mean, I'm sure that's a vague and big question, but you know, your theories at the beginning versus your theories now about what will really make a difference in communities. I mean, what's the kind of big insight that you're currently operating on as you think about how to grow your impact?
Yeah, so been there for long now, but I think the future, and I think was that, first of all, you have to know your vision. You know, you have to believe in what, you know, no matter what, focus. I think I was able to focus on what I believed in, you know. And growing up in the slum, to be honest with you, I was anti-elite, being honest. I felt we were neglected, and I felt we have nothing to do with anybody. Middle class, you know, we were just poor people. We were mad, we were having anger, you know, we felt really isolated. Coming to realize in the work is that we need to create bridges. And that's why, Wendy, I'm really part of this Teach for Kenya, you know what I mean? Because the only way we can solve our challenges is when we partner, when we open the door. So what's happening now is in Kibera School for Girls, we are able to invite middle class to come and do mentorships. So how do we find ways of working with other people, you know, who brings different skills? And that for us has been a way of creating jobs, network. And let's talk about, we talk about the poverty. Poverty is something very big. Poverty for me is what? Number one, isolation. You people have your bad schools. You won't go anywhere. You are going to a school, you know? And if you find a way of how to link two different worlds, then you are creating the future. You are creating what we call sharing of resources, sharing of ideas. And SHOFCO has been really successful because of that partnership. Go back about Jessica, who is my wife, and me. Jessica comes from America. I come from Kibera, from the community. Both of us, we have been able really to work together, you know. And for me, it was a way of two worlds were able to intertwine, you know, to connect, you know. Yeah, so I think working with people is very, very important. Another thing is to listen you have to really listen. And I feel so lucky that this is interesting, Wendy. So when you live in places like Kibera, you don't understand this world, American world, the world of grants. It has their own languages, you know. I was really confused all the time trying to write grants. I can't get anything. They have their own languages, you know what I mean? They have their own way of doing it. So I realized that there's a big difference. So the change for SHOFCO happened when I was able to come to understand the language and understand people on the grassroots level and at the same time people in another world. So that's very important. And that's why some organizations and some groups will just continue stuck because the world is really difficult. And then with all your money and your resources, you can also not understand the grassroots. So you can't succeed, I'm being honest. They also have a hard time just being alone. So that's why I believe what's called what? If those two people can come together, you know what I mean, we can have the change. Because it's about balancing.
And how do you, so where are you all now in terms of, like, when you think about the scope of Kibera?
Yeah.
Because it's like, how many people live in Kibera?
Kibera there's no really figure that people knows about it. Some people say it's from 500,000 to 1 million, no? Yeah.
And what scale are you all, how do you think about scale in that context, and how do you think about growing your impact, and what really needs to happen to kind of help accelerate the progress in Kibera?
Yeah. So in Kibera now we're expanding in different ways. We started with a couple of students, like 60. Now we have 200. But at the same time, we are serving over 70,000 individuals. Therefore, for me, this is something unique number because they're the one protecting the school, they're the one believing in education. This is through clean water. We have clean water. We have health clinic that we have right now. We have satellites. You know, we have 4 different satellites clinics. You know. At the same time, with water, we're able to expand within the community. At the same time, now we are also working in another slum called Madare. Madare is the second largest slum in Kenya. I mean, by working with local leaders there, local community, you know. So I see we are expanding deep and also to other geographical areas. And also by just working with different people.
And what's your own focus? I mean, you're so young and have accomplished so much, but have so much in front of you. I mean, how are you thinking about your own focus over time? Are you focused largely on Kibera, Kenya more broadly?
Perfect. I think I'm focusing mostly in the informal settlement, the slums, mostly now in Nairobi. You have to say that it is all isolation. Sometimes people forget that they have the power. These people vote, these people know. So how do you bring people together? How do you make people believe that they can change their own life? Another thing that poverty does to you is to make you believe you are born poor, that's your life. And I believed that for a while. I was like, really, I felt like this is my life. If you're born in a rich family, you're going to have a better life. That's your life. But for me, I'm poor and I'm poor. But it's not true. You know what I mean? It's not true. I think we can change our own life. You know, we have to know that we can come together and change. You know, so I feel like if we can start on the grassroots level, people like government. Right now you say about Kibera, I've seen some changes happening now. Government are trying to come in to build roads. You know what I mean? But when people really start coming together, to change their own life, then change start happening. You know what I mean? But you just keep quiet and be like, oh, I'm poor. So I'm trying to bring people to believe that they can change their own life and they can come together. And when they come together, it's a force. You know what I mean? You share skills and life keep on moving.
And do you see progress? Like, do you feel like fundamentally things are getting better, or what's your current state of mind on that?
I feel I'm very, very happy to say that I feel a lot of things are happening, changes. For example, in Kibera, the issue of gender equality has changed now. Women have more say, you know what I mean? And according to what we're doing research around and talking to people, we've seen that thing happening. At the same time, we have seen people are more aware. You can't manipulate them anymore, as used to happen. You know, it's just a school. It is a movement. You know, we share ideas. We talk about issues. You know, so I've seen a lot of changes. We now have clean water. The government is building roads now, and people are becoming more aware.
Yeah. You all feel free to ask questions, send in questions if you're out there in the world. I see a few of them coming through, but I'm going to ask just another set here before we go to them. A couple more just realms of discussion. One, Teach for Kenya. I wonder how you think about that idea and whether it could, I know you're excited about it. And Kennedy is on our Global Advisory Committee and is helping to advise us not only in Kenya but about our work more broadly. But what are your thoughts about the idea of Teach for Kenya?
The one thing I love about the idea for Teach for Kenya, it is more local. I love the idea that it's more the locals are the one talking about it, And if you think about Kenya, I talked about before idea of isolation. We have really schools that are run by government and private, which are informal, and they are really isolated. These kids really have the teachers, sometimes we really don't care. This is so sad. Sometimes teachers don't come to classroom. You can see that on the research, whereby teachers spend more time absent. You know what I mean? These students, for me, they don't know what is a better Kenya. You know what I mean? So I believe in this idea of involving more teachers who are coming from students coming from different background. They become more like mentor for these kids. At the same time, I see Kenya is ready. We have a new constitution. Kenya is a hub in terms of technology. Things are really happening, and I am not happy that some part of the country are being left aside for this. That's why I really believe in this Teach for Kenya. I see it's something that's going to really change my country, seriously, And it will involve the government, we will involve stakeholders, people. We want it to be more like everybody would be part of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm a big champion on it.
What do you think are the biggest challenges facing Teach for Kenya? I mean, which is not really in motion, just to clarify. But when you think about the context, and will we be able to, or will that local Kenyan team be able to find the potential recruits and get them placed into classrooms and build the governmental and private sector support? Does it feel like the time is now and this could just happen, or what are the biggest barriers, do you think?
You won't believe this, but it's so interesting. So in Kenya, there are people who believe that there's already Teach for Kenya going on. You know what I mean? So there's that kind of momentum. Yeah. Really, I talk to people like, oh, Teach for Kenya. I don't know, like, oh, not yet ready. We are working on it. But this kind of feeling that is already going on. So for me, that's something really positive. You know what I mean? And at the same time, we have to prove that we are not a threat to the teachers. We are not going to be a threat, okay, to the teachers and the teachers' union. That's how that have to become very clearly, because we are just filling the gaps. Okay, you have to be clear on that. The same time, it's always very much a little bit scary for the social entrepreneur to take on something new. That's a little bit of a challenge. You know what I mean? We have a couple of people who are really looking for to talk to, and will be interesting to see how we are going to work with these new social entrepreneurs on how to mentor them. So what I'm working on now, we are making a base. People they can talk to. I have friends from banking group, people from corporations, just to build what's called now, just to build a base. That even if you're going to run Teach for Kenya, you're not alone. I think there's something about being scared and being alone. So as what we're trying to do in Kenya is to make sure that we have some structures, people rallying the supporters, which are, So last time in Kenya, Samantha and I, we had a very good meeting with the Kenyans, organized by Equity Bank. And I was so impressed by the number of people who came out. And that for me was a way forward.
Yeah, so exciting. Beautiful. One other just realm, I tweeted out yesterday an op-ed that you wrote over a year ago. It is so timely still today. I mean, it was linked to a particular event. That was very tragic and unfortunate, but it could be, they should republish it. And you made a real case, it was so powerfully put that, I'll just quote one sentence from it: "The war on terror can be won only through education, promise, and real opportunities." Can you say more about that? And also, do you feel like people are hearing this message and actually acting consistently with it? Or curious about your worldview at the moment on this topic.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so I wrote that article according to through my personal experience, what I saw in the slum and what and people are looking for opportunity. There's nobody is bad. You know what I mean? But what happened is what message you get. And what's happening, if you are a hopeless man, there's no daily bread, you will go for anything. You know what I mean? That's how the gangs work. You know what I mean? So there's no big difference. But if we can focus more in building the opportunities, we'll end up having less problems. And if you see what's happening in right now, if you talk about groups like Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, whatever, in Kenya now they're going to the informal slums, informal settlement. They are doing recruitment. They are promising you a better life, and that makes you a little bit excited. Not that you want to do anything bad, but because you are empty. You know what I mean? So, but if we as a society can spend more money, more resources on education, that would be the best way to fight all these things. Yeah.
Becca Ships from Teach for All's team is asking, what is your vision for Kibera's future, Kenya's future, and how can these visions become reality?
Wow, that's a Kenyan future, Kibera's future. We are working on to make a better Kibera. What is a better Kibera? Education, healthcare, and jobs. And that's what we've been working on. We have. So I also see the future whereby the government should be much more involved. That's kind of my dream. If the government and the community can really work together, that's be something good. So far, I'm seeing some hope on that. And in terms of Kenya is really going towards a good direction. I'm really impressed by young population. They're becoming much more aware than the like more than 10 years ago. Right now, for example, in Kibera, I think almost over 60% of population are under the age of 15. Interesting. So if we can invest education on these people, we have the better Kenya.
Gosh. And are there promising initiatives on that front?
In terms of?
In terms of education, like when you think about what's going on in Kenya broadly, is the government and our communities taking steps to actually improve education? Like, do you see progress on that front?
Education, yeah. Education is interesting because I'm a little bit not happy the way things are going. Because if you see the number of students in a classroom, scares you. You see over 100, 200 in a small, some places there's no even buildings, there's no building for the classes, So, and let it be clear, it's not just education. We want a better education. There's those two different things: education or a better education, quality education. And and that's what we are now facing. We have these schools that don't have really good teachers. There's no enough teachers in classrooms. And that's the problem the government is facing now. There's a shortage of teachers in Kenya.
Interesting. And how do you think about it? You spoke a bit about this earlier, but you're bringing me back to the Teach for Kenya idea because, as you well know, it can make an impact in terms of teachers, but in the end, it also just would do so much to build this growing force of leaders who could end up taking this issue on from lots of different directions, but who are really grounded in the experience of having taught in the kind of most kind of marginalized parts of the country. How do you think about that piece of the Teach for Kenya work?
We talk about the Teach for Kenya. I see two outcomes. One, the students are going to get a better education, which is good. We have a shortage of teachers in Kenya, so that's really interesting that we're able to help. The third one that I'm really much more impressed about is, if you think about these African countries, people become into leadership positions. Talk about class and isolation. Most of them don't understand what is poverty. They don't understand what people are passing through in daily life. But what Teach for Kenya is going to do, we're going to force them to be teachers. Okay, that's what we're not going to force them, but they'll be passing through this kind of experience that will, in the future, will change the way they are viewing things, and in their leadership roles, they are bankers or whatever they're going to be in the government, they'll be able to understand the situation on the grassroots level. I'm a really believer on that. In that way, we are changing a lot. What happens if you are the president or you are the minister or whatever, and you don't understand what people are passing through, what 60% of population are going through, is hard. We have people who don't understand people can go with no food, you know what I mean? And they're in leadership. So they can't make the policies that really caters for the poor. So these programs, for me, I think is going to help the students, but also the teachers we're going to have are going to be going back to school again. School of life.
Yeah.
And so I love
Totally.
that. Yeah.
So great.
That will, in long term, will impact their life and the life of the society as a whole.
Yeah.
You know?
Great.
Yeah.
Another question from Twitter, from @ThinkImmigration, asking you how you would recommend getting young students in the U.S. to start thinking globally.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, I know this is tough, but it's also just interesting. I mean, Kennedy, you've spent a lot of time, it seems, in the U.S. trying to wrestle funds for the efforts in Kenya. And I wonder what your experience has been in that and whether you've found, I mean, I personally, in trying to raise funds for Teach for All, have encountered the fact that there are just so few people in the U.S. who really think globally. And I guess I wonder, and this question seems to be getting at the question of how do we cultivate young people in this very rich country who do think about where the most pressing needs are around the world and the role that they can play in developing them. I mean, I'm just curious about your general experience in trying to enlist help and resources from here.
So what I've seen is that, for me, I see the world as a global village. I'm kidding you. What's happening in Nigeria affects what's happening in New York. What's happening in Kenya affects what's happening here. I mean, so the world is a global village. But I'm also a little bit sad that most of the time, many Americans, and let's be honest, have been much more focused on everything is America. Everything is America. You know, there's no way of seeing beyond that. You know, so let's make it much more. If we can see the world as a global village, we'll be able to accept that what happens in developing countries or what's happened in Afghanistan, now we have ISIS. Man, it's affecting us, you know, everywhere, you know what I mean? And then, my strong point in terms of development is, you agree with me here, $1 goes a long way in places like Kibera. $1 goes a long way there, you know what I mean? So that for me is a way to keep people to know that you can have what? You can have an impact. Another thing I believe in is not only resources, I also believe in skills. If you can share your skills, what you are good at, globally. Because the world is what? It's a small village. I mean, yeah. So yeah. And it's really good to be aware as young people, what is happening around you, what is happening around the world. I mean, because I think it's very, very important to understand, you know. And I also believe in, I said, partnership. You know what I mean? We can, if you think of places like Kenya now, there's a lot of happening in terms of business, in terms of ideas, you know what I mean? So there's always something that can happen. Yeah.
And how do you think about your own best focus? I mean, you've been doing so much through kind of, I mean, many people would call you a social entrepreneur. I don't know if you call yourself a social entrepreneur. But as you think about kind of working from a community-based perspective versus working from a kind of governmental perspective, I mean, how much are you doing to actually try to cross sectors and influence what the government does? And I mean, you're still so young, I can't get over that, but are you engaged in discussions with the government to try to help them become more effective and community grounded and such?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. Number one is that you have to know that you cannot just start talking with the government. No. So what happened is the community, the actions that they see on the grassroots level is what makes them want to talk to you. Okay? That's what I learned in my life. You know, if you look what they're doing now, they're trying to do things. You know, and right now we are having a lot of talks. I've met some really senior people in the government who are trying to talk on how they can change Kibera. Why? Don't sleep. This is my message to everybody. Do what you do it the best. It's gonna shine. When it shines, it attracts. So we'll be able to attract the government. I love this part, you know. We don't be able to go to them, no. They're able now to having conversation with us, how we can help each other. We have been talking, you know what I mean? So for me, and I see it's also good to think about policy. You know what I mean? Policy is very important because that's a really for long term. But you don't have to wait for the policy. You have to start doing something. So there's a conversation going on, and we're engaging the government.
Yeah, that's great. And do you see them? What do you see promising things happening as a result of that?
Yeah, I see a lot of things happening because of our work in the community has really kind of made Kibera to be much more something the government has to care about. You know, because of the work we're doing, the mobilization we're doing in the community. I told you before, now we have the roads. They're building the roads. I think I have to give them credit for that. That's a really big step.
Yeah.
Because in Kibera we have fire sometimes happening. There's no way we can put off the fire because there's no roads. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then they're going to cater into what? Into toilets. Now in the community, you know, we didn't have toilets for a long time. In the, you know, and I see changes. You know what I mean? And I would think everything is more step by step, and we can't fight the government. We have to engage them. You know, what we want, and I want personally, is a better Kibera. Doesn't care who brings it.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, your comments just kind of raised this question for me, which is just that, I mean, you're operating in this incredible context where the needs are so massive and the resources are so limited, and trying to figure out kind of where you intervene. So, for example, you know, part of your piece in the New York Times was about the importance of economic opportunity, providing economic opportunity to the people, irrespective of what their levels of education are. You're obviously such an advocate for investing in education. And even within choosing your levers within education, it's like, do we invest in Teach for Kenya, which is a very expensive model when you think about it on a per child basis, versus what some could consider to be more basic needs? I mean, how do you think about kind of where to put the resources and how to prioritize among all the different things that need to be done?
Okay, if we talk about Kibera specifically, for me, I'm been much more of the holistic approach, and this is something that has really worked in the slum. You know, and the negative part is that it's so difficult to get funding for the holistic approach. Actually, working on the grassroots level is very, very hard. If you talk about the scale, you know what I mean? I think investing for Teach for Kenya is a massive, you know, in terms of the impact it's going to have. Because I said that before, I see it as it's something new, you know, but the outcome will be really huge.
Yeah.
If we really, But we have to start talking to the corporates. That's why I say it's not something we don't have. It's not one thing for one person. You know, it has to be involvement. We have to sell the idea to the Kenyans.
Yeah.
Because I think Teach for Kenya, forgive me here, has a very good way of getting funding, even than something like SHOFCO. Because it's easy. It's something. It is much more. It's much more seen even by everybody in Kenya, like it's something needed. You know what I mean? And people are willing to invest into it. You know what I mean? So, and I think is at that time now we have to really talk to it, you know, and we also have to use a way of the companies that are coming from America, in the, you know, that are working in Kenya. You know, because we know Teach for America has been a really amazing model, and we all agree on that. So how do we use that? Those are going to be our allies, are companies that are coming, also corporations that are coming from America that are now working in Kenya. I've been thinking about that too. How do we involve them? Because they understand it here.
Yeah.
It has worked here.
Yeah.
So it can work there.
Yeah. Becca Ships asked another question on Skype. Basically, you know, can you talk about the changes that you're actually seeing in Kibera? Like, meaning, are the children of Kibera growing up with more opportunity today than they were when you were growing up?
Okay, good. Yeah, there's a lot of changes compared to my when I was a kid and now. One of them is the value of education has now changed. You know what I mean? Although people were not really taking it serious, because it's more about hustling. But right now in our area, you see these kids who are going to our school, the way they speak, it inspires other parents to take the other kids to school. So more kids have been really enrolled in school than before. In terms of gender equality, I see more girls going to school compared to my like 10 years ago. Why? Now they can see the value of education. You know what I mean? Our girls are really performing well in the exams. They were in the poetry, they were number one, in the whole country. So people are seeing these kind of things. Whereby before, people like Kennedy will go get a job in the factory. So Kennedy's sister should not go to school because they don't get a job in the factory. That changed. Another thing that happened in the community is there used to be a lot of sexual violence against women. Right now, they are not reported. Right now, people report these cases. For me, this is really amazing that we can talk about it. Before, perpetrator will just walk free. Now, no. You have to run away. And that, that's for me big changes that I've seen in the community. We also have a clean water, which we never had for a long time in my area.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, Kennedy, about the incredible, like the personal journey that you have been on. It just seems sort of surreal, thinking about where you grew up, the different worlds that you now need to operate in. And I guess I wonder how you stay so centered and how you're doing in sustaining all of this personally.
Yeah, so I have to say my life has been tough, for sure, been really hard life. But in terms of the shining up communities, the organization, I've been really lucky to have good staff, community members who are really working hard day to day to make this movement sustain itself. Yeah, and personally, this is my advice to people. It was a challenge, coming from nothing to something. It can be overwhelming. How do you survive? And right now, it's a big change. I won't lie. It's a huge change for me, what is happening. But I've learned what is called to live in the moment. That's the only thing that sustained me. It is now I'm here. And focus on that. Living in the moment has been really a way of grounding myself. Because I think, if you think about the past, can also bring what? Stress, also can bring the ego. Last time I met so-and-so, you were in an ego. But if you live on the present, you can ground yourself. So I try to live in the present.
Yeah. That's great, beautiful advice. Yeah. And how do you think about, you had said earlier that, for the folks in the grassroots, there can be such a disconnect from sort of the elite, and yet once you access these resources, then you can be disconnected from the grassroots. Like, how do you keep it all in balance and ensure that you're still staying centered in and grounded in the community?
It's very important. For example, in Kibera, when I got my scholarship and I went back to Kibera, I could see some people were more like, will you really talk to us? Will you really, are you now too cool than us? Which was, they have to be suspicious. They have a right, But for me, I understand that we need both to world. And this is so fun, Wendy. When my life changed maybe 2 years ago when I met upper middle class from Kenya. So even though I was like getting my support from America, so I never grew in what's called organic. Organic in Kenya is that you come from the Kibera slum, you go to Nairobi University, and you meet the middle class, and that's your life. From Kibera and having a panel with President Clinton, and it was like, whoa, this is so huge. Nothing in Kenya except the ghetto. So it was a really big world for me. In the US, knowing Wendy very closely, no connection in Kenya. Can you see that? Was something like, and I didn't understand the Kenyan middle class. I was wrong. I thought they didn't care. So when I met this guy called David, who is my best friend now, who told me, Kennedy, everybody has a story. Your story is a story of my father. I'm like, wow. But how can we come to Kibera? And that's when I realized, Wendy, is that, okay, I have to start creating bridges. Now you won't believe the amount of support we are getting from Kenyans. Last year, my budget, 10% was from Kenya. Before I didn't get anything from Kenya. So I realized that everybody want to have an impact. They don't know how. But in terms of being grounded, I understand that Kibera is very, very important. At the same time, I understand the other world. So that has been much more my strength, is to listen to the people. They might have different ideas, but they're all the same. And you need them both. For SHOFCO to work, I need the ideas of people from Kibera. I also need the the support of financial
Yeah.
resources. You know, so it's a
Yeah.
way of balancing them both, and you have
Yeah.
to know that they can't do without each.
Yeah.
They need each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah. And so where do you think, like when you think, say, 5 years out, where do you think SHOFCO will be at that point? Or what are the questions around that in your own mind?
Let's just make it short and simple. In the next 5 years, I think SHOFCO will be playing, apart from services delivery, will be doing a big role in policy making. Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
that. Yeah, because we already proven that we, so it'll be
Yeah.
much more policy.
And what do you think the policy focus will be?
I think we have to change the way the government and people view the Kibera and the slums in Kenya. You know what I mean? So I see we're going to play a very big role on how to transform the society, the informal settlements in Kenya. So what that means education system, okay? That means in terms of health, there's a well-being of human being. I don't think people should live the way people live now. It's unfair, to be honest. You know, in this 21st century.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me see what's here. Oh, Deb. Yeah.
So I mean, I'm fascinated by everything you said, but I'm fixated on this idea of, and I've read a lot about you, and I watched your commencement speaker. It's amazing. So you make $1 a day, and then you buy this soccer ball for 20 cents, and so then where, like, your whole world has been Kibera, where do you get the funding from there? For SHOFCO to like grow, right?
Okay.
You have to see
I get your point. So I knew what I was facing. I was facing insecurity. I was facing hopelessness. So what we did, we turned it upside down. I said this: we are rich, we are wealthy. Materialistically, in materials, we are poor, but we are rich in neighborhood. We have, we have communal. We have things that in Kibera people care about each other. These are our wealth. And we don't need anything else. And the only way to kill a snake in Africa, when you kill a snake, you use whatever you have. You don't look for a gun. Anything you have, beat the snake with. So we're going to beat this poverty with what we have. We're able to come together to play soccer. That was something brings the energy together, coming together. Slowly by slowly, we're able to start businesses, whereby we're able to help each other to start small businesses. We're doing cleanups. So it really grew up slowly by slowly. We're making ornaments. But the idea was that we are wealthy. We don't, because our mind has to be set into like, we're going to change our own life in this jungle with nobody helping us. We are on our own. And I had to make that clear. So anything else for us was a bonus. It's true. I asked the members to do that. They're like, everything else was a bonus. So we have to switch our mind and believe that we're going to change our society no matter what. We're going to clean the streets. We're going to talk about issues. We're going to do the cleanups. When we get any support, that's bonus.
Kennedy, I'm going to end by asking you for some advice for Teach for All. So, as I said, Kennedy's on our advisory committee, and particularly in the realm of advising our work in Africa. And as you think about our work, I mean, what are the biggest risks or concerns that you actually have deep down or see? I mean, what do you think we need to be super sensitive about and careful about as we think about really maximizing the possibilities in Africa around this work?
You know why I love Wendy? She's just too honest. She wants me to, I think this question is very interesting. I love you, Wendy. Other people will not ask that question in front of a camera. As we talk about Teach for All, we have to be very, very, I'll say a few things here. One is, as we work in Asia and Africa, we have to know that we are working in a different continent. Brazil, China, all other countries in the Asian continent, is that more people are willing to use their wealth to change their country. So they are the next America, they're coming up. Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Ghana, we're having this problem that we don't have these people who are willing to invest their resources. So our social entrepreneurs in Africa, we have to think twice, are going to have challenges. The only hope I think I can have is countries like Nigeria and South Africa. We have these people, companies that really made huge money at the same time. For example, you can go to other countries, they'll ask you go and have dinner, and I'm like, if you find anybody, yeah, I will support. I'm sure in Brazil or in India, Wendy, Africa is different. So we have to know,
And that's because the wealth is older. Is that
you
what mean?
got it, yeah, the wealth is older,
Yeah.
you know. And so something that we have to really see how to navigate. But the energy and the people are really willing to do something. So that's one challenge, you know, that unless we get some people who are really companies, you know, it might be, we might end up having a little bit of support, social entrepreneurs, think on how to be trained on how to get it outside, as we wait for our country to start embracing it.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Do you tap into aid dollars at all for your own work? Governmental funds that come from outside the country?
We,
Or no?
like USAID,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And other,
from the American government.
American government, but from other governments, the various foreign aid sources.
That's good, yes. That's a good point. There's a lot of support, for example, the DFID and the USAID, and I think for SHOFCO was not yet ready for that. We are working on that now.
Yeah.
But I think because of the brand of Teach for All, I think that's a thing that we have to think of. I never thought about that. That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. And what about government funding in Kenya? Is that non-existent? Or
Man, I won't even talk about that. That one is something to think about.
Yeah.
For now. Maybe in future. I hope the government
Yeah.
is listening that. They will be doing good things.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Any other questions in the room? No? Or online? I think we're good. Kennedy, thank you so much
Thanks,
for
Evan.
being
Yes,
here with
thanks,
us.
Wendy.
So
That's
great.
really- It was good. I enjoyed it.
No,
Yeah.
very fun as always. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.